Picture this. Me, Reese Witherspoon, in London, ordering fish and chips so often they might start wrapping me in paper. I'm traveling with my Wells Fargo Autograph Journey card, so I earn rewards wherever I book travel. 5 times points with hotels, 4 times with airlines, 3 times on restaurants and other travel, and 1 point on other purchases. Imagine getting rewarded for eating a toad in the hole. Wait, what is a toad in a hole?
Visit wellsfargo.com/autograph journey. Terms apply.
As scientific discovery changes the landscape, advances in cancer care may offer new hope for your patients. See how Pfizer is helping reshape what's possible at cancer.pfizer.com.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You heard about that great big pool in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and they've been vandalizing it because President Trump has fixed it, wants to fix it, is working to fix it. Thing was leaky, and every time I went to Washington, I noticed, wow, this is a beautiful skyline, but up close, there were a lot of things wrong with it. A lot of little things that just, I noticed that actually about our infrastructure in general sometimes in America. It just doesn't, just not up to snuff. And we have a situation where we have a builder, not just a builder, people, well, he can build things, yes, but it also gives him real world-class skill in something. And nobody ever brings any skill to politics. It's very unusual where somebody really knows something and the people can benefit from that person's knowledge. As far as presidents go, I think there's 1, maybe 2, 3, actually. I'm talking about in the last 100 years or so. Ronald Reagan, his communication skills were such that, and his belief in conservatism, we had never had anybody like that. To be a conservative, that was like, wow. The word conservative frightened people. It was akin to being a radical. And Reagan was almost a philosopher when it came to conservatism, a philosopher. And people liked him because he was nice and he was a fantastic, amazing communicator. And he was a great salesman. I don't think these conservative values really need salesmanship, but for a time they did. And he was world class. You look at these other guys, they were just people who wanted to be liked. Including Nixon, quite frankly. The guy had so many personal hang-ups. And he was good at certain things, but was he ever world class? Even if you have a world-class intellect, that doesn't mean you should be president. Lyndon Johnson had world-class ability in the legislature, but he didn't have world-class ability as an executive. So Donald Trump, world-class ability, where the world admired him for stuff he did that had nothing to do with politics. And the same with Dwight Eisenhower, world-class skill in military affairs. So this world-class skill that President Trump brings is very unusual in the swamp, and all the skill has to come from bureaucrats, right? I mean, they're the ones who really run things, right? The politicians come and go. That's how they see it. That's how they want it. But that ain't what the Constitution says. So when President Trump has the nerve to fix the infrastructure that we can all see, everybody's out to destroy it. Everybody. And Jonathan Karl, one of the most dishonest people in America. How can you go on television and just tell, I remember catching this guy in a lie, because I read his books. And I'm like, this is, I busted him cold. I'm going to have to break that out. It was all the way back in 2021. But here he is, screwing around by that reflective pool, reaching in and taking things out, which is vandalism. Cut 5, if you don't mind. Cut 5.
I'm here at the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool, and some astounding developments. It's all green now. They know that. They're trying to kill the algae. That American flag blue paint, it's peeling away. The $14 million job to redo the bottom of this reflecting pool is falling apart before our eyes. The algae is still here, but the paint appears to be going away.
You're ripping it up. He was vandalizing it right in the middle. And this thing isn't done yet. And they're going to be fits and starts. But the way they anything that Trump touches, anything, they're going to give him a hard time about the pool. What do you think they're going to do with Iran? Now, this is one of the silliest people around, Cornell Belcher, talking about the fun times he had when he was a kid jumping in that pool. I used to live in Washington, D.C. I lived there for 4 years. Nobody ever jumped in that damn pool. It's not a pool. It's like 6 inches deep. You don't go in that thing. You can't swim. Listen to this liar. Cut 6.
The criminalization and the slippery slope to authoritarianism. But this is what it looks like, right? Like all of a sudden, something that you played in, something that when I came to visit Washington, I also splashed around in, right. All of a sudden that's a crime. And so we're going to have a kid who's splashing around in a pool in Washington, D.C., like thousands of kids do all the time. We're going to put them in handcuffs? Like that's, to me, is the ultimate sort of symbol of how this country has fallen into disrepair and authoritarianism.
Yeah, right. Putting kids in handcuffs. Yeah, actually, it is a crime jumping in that damn thing. Now, we made a giant exception, however, for Forrest Gump. Remember Forrest Gump? Who saw that movie with Tom Hanks? Back when he was cool? In the 1990s. I remember this movie, 1994. Everybody saw it. It was the talk of the country. I didn't really like it that much. There's something about it. I mean, it was entertaining, but I was such a snob in the 90s about movies and stuff like that. Nothing was ever good enough for me. I don't know what was going on in my head. Maybe I should watch that movie again. But Forrest Gump is at the Lincoln Memorial. He's a soldier, just got back from Vietnam, and he gives a moving speech. And everybody is like in awe, and everybody is like 1 million hippies outside of the Lincoln Memorial surrounding that pool. All right. Now go ahead and play what happens.
What's your name, man?
My name is Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump!
It's Jenny. And she jumped in the pool, and she's walking in it. It comes up to her shins. And then he's so excited to see Jenny, he jumps in the pool. It comes up to his shins. It's like a gigantic puddle. And they're walking, sludging through the puddle. They're going to grab each other. If you look really, really closely, he's grabbing her butt.
It was the happiest moment of my life.
So if you see that movie in that scene, you've got 1 million hippies, 1 million lawbreakers, 1 million people who want to stick it to the system. And they're surrounding the pool. And not one of them are in the pool. It's just Forrest and Jenny. I wonder what happened to Bubba. Was Bubba dead or alive? Did Bubba die in Vietnam? I think he may have. Yeah, that was quite a movie. Anyway, when he's involved, they lie like crazy, and it's unfortunate. He's making it, and it's going to work, and I love it. I love it. I love change. You got to embrace change. You got to not be afraid of it. It's interesting. President Trump is a guy who's never actually, I'm told, I got this sense too, but he doesn't like to look back. It's always forward, forward, forward. You know, what's going on right now? What do you know? What's news? What's news? What's news? He's always inhaling information. Very interesting to see him inhaling this information. I want to go into this John Thune situation. John Thune, I mean, I'm sorry. You know, I know looks can be deceiving, and we're not supposed to look at somebody and make a judgment because technically that's prejudgment, i.e. prejudice. And I don't like prejudice. However, I don't think it's totally prejudice because this guy is slow walking the Save America Act. And maybe this is the prejudice part. He looks weird. He looks shifty. I don't know if you saw that video of him where President Trump is talking and he rolled his eyes. He rolled his eyes. He got busted and his hands are like moving around. He's all uncomfortable and strange. This is after President Trump went up to Capitol Hill and started kind of trying to slap these guys around metaphorically, verbally, get their act together. And, let's start making things happen on the Save America Act. I like, check out this guy. It's a good reporter. Rick Scott. Cut 10, if you don't mind. Cut 10.
The commander-in-chief is literally just rolling out now in a motorcade it's got probably 30 cars in it with the beast, and he's heading for Capitol Hill for that luncheon with a group that's called the Senate Steering Committee. That is the conservative bloc of senators, roughly 25 conservative senators who get together, sort of like the Freedom Caucus or the Republican Study Committee on the House side. So the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, was not involved in this invitation. It wasn't cleared with him. I doubt he's even going to attend. Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, who challenged Thune for leadership at the beginning of this session, Rick Scott invited the president. And so this is a very interesting dynamic because the conservatives on Capitol Hill have been pushing for the Save America Act, and the Republican leadership, along with Democrats and their media allies, have been trying to block the Save America Act. The bill passed the House. All they need is the Senate to approve it, and then we're off to the races. The president today was supposed to sign a major housing bill. He said, I will not sign the housing legislation until I get the Save America Act, Terrence.
Some interesting storylines developing. Let me start here with Rick Scott of Florida inviting the president and not necessarily notifying Leader Thune. Do you see this as a first step of potentially pushing John Thune out?
Well, it doesn't do anything to help him, that's for sure. It basically says, hey, you're on notice, kid. The majority leader position is not in the Constitution. He is not in the chain of succession. That's why the president pro tempore succeeds after the Speaker of the House, not the majority leader. Is it a party position? 27 senators could oust Thune today at lunch. I don't know if it'll happen today, but I've never heard such talk and buzz about ousting a majority leader in the middle of a session in all my years of covering politics. You hear it all the time now and then.
Wow. Rick Scott, the Republican of Florida, Navy veteran and a very rich man. How about that? I've not heard that out loud. Murmurings at best. John Thune's days numbered. Well, he's a George Bush guy, and he's a creepy son of a bitch. Hey, you can't roll. He got busted rolling his eyes at the president of the United States. Hey, who was that guy who was talking about? The president pro temp. So, by Senate tradition, that office is bestowed upon the most senior member of the majority party, and that is Chuck Grassley. Now, we like Chuck Grassley, but some say he may have lost his fastball, right? Been around a long time. They call him the patron saint of whistleblowers. A little shout out to the whistleblowers out there. Number one, nice job in turning in Gavin Newsom, because a whistleblower is making all kinds of, turning over all kinds of evidence of wrongdoing, potential wrongdoing by the first partner of California. They don't call her the first lady. They call her the first partner. You don't want to alienate people who are in domestic arrangements but are not married. I remember when that was considered taboo. Remember that word, taboo? You never hear it anymore because nothing is taboo. Taboo. Three's Company back in the day was taboo. Remember? The guy, they had to pretend he was gay to let him live with those two girls. And it was like the talk of the country. Oh, my gosh. 2 girls and a guy living together? Wow, what could happen next? That was cute. That was cute. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. Another thing about John Thune, he's too good looking. All right? Can't stop looking at himself in the mirror. And one of these guys who's afraid to break a sweat. And one of these guys who's afraid to, I might not look elegant. I might look in over my head. Now, if you want to be cool, you're never going to get anything done. And that's what we're seeing from Thune. He can't rock the boat. We're ready to flip that damn boat over and get you out of it. You can swim for the shore. And then we'll figure out the boat. We can right side it up and fix it. But the SAVE Act should be a no-brainer and obviously easy. If you can't figure out the muscle, if you don't have the political muscle, you should resign. John Thune, Thune. And by the way, why do we have so many South Dakota leaders. You know what I mean? I mean, who was the other guy with the glasses? He was around forever until they busted him on something. The same type of guy, too. What was that guy's name? He became, they nominated him for something under Obama, and he got busted. He got busted with the chauffeur and not paying taxes. I'll figure it out. 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Thune gone by July 4th. Be right back.
Greg Kelly on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Justice Department, CNN is learning, has launched a new criminal investigation into one of Trump's enemies, E. Jean Carroll. Now, E. Jean Carroll was the former magazine columnist who accused President Donald Trump of sexual assault. Ended up being that he was liable for sexual abuse. The source is telling CNN that the investigation now is focused on whether Carroll committed perjury during her 2 civil lawsuits against the president. Paula Reed is breaking the story, and she's out front. And Paula, what else are you learning about this? I mean, there was obviously a verdict here.
That's right. And here, Aaron, this is the latest move by the Justice Department to take action against one of President Trump's long-standing foes. Our sources tell us that this investigation is focused on a 2022 deposition that Carroll gave, where she said that she had not received any outside funding. Now, her lawyers later told the judge that she had, in fact, received funding for legal fees and expenses from billionaire Reid Hoffman. The judge overseeing this case ultimately said there were no issues with her credibility and blocked Trump lawyers from asking about this at trial. Now, Carroll currently has multiple legal battles with Trump currently pending, including one before the Supreme Court. And notably, Aaron, the Supreme Court has deferred 12 times on a decision whether they want to take up that case. Now, over at the Justice Department, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, I am told, has recused from this case because he worked on one of the
Vicious, BITC, E. Jean Carroll. Busted. And now we have it. You know, it was on, it was off. There isn't a criminal investigation. It looks like there is a criminal investigation into the woman who waged lawfare against President Trump, the most bogus charge in the world. It should have been laughed out of court, never should have made it to court. How do you defend yourself? First of all, they changed the law so that she could go back 30 years and say that something happened to her. Because there's a statute of limitations for a reason, right? You can't defend yourself. If the evidence is gone, people are dead. You know, the 30, you can't say 30 years ago this happened. And one of the reasons why, because she didn't even know. She didn't even know. Was it the fall of 1995 or the spring of 1996? Was it summer? Was it winter? But she humble bragged to a friend 10 years later. You ever hear the word humble brag? It's really useful. A lot of people out there humble bragging. Oh, yeah, he was all over me. Oh, gosh, yeah, no. It's the humble brag. You're pretending you're downplaying something, but you're really just bragging about yourself. E. Jean Carroll, nut job. And this is a beautiful thing. And the president must take care to ensure justice is fulfilled.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Shortly after Mayor de Blasio became mayor in 2014, there was a rumor going around that he smoked pot, right? And he was smoking pot at Gracie Mansion. And it was considered oh my gosh, if this is true, this is one of the biggest stories ever, right? You can't be smoking pot if you're the mayor. And he denied it. I think he does smoke pot, but who knows? He denied it. And what are you going to do? You can't drug test him. Certainly govern the city like he was stoned. But now we're in a position that, you can be the mayor and you can actually say openly in a debate, yeah, I buy weed from the cannabis store down the block from me and I smoke it. And it doesn't even get noticed. The comment, what if you're high? What if you're high on duty? I do remember going again back to 1987, this guy, Michael Ginsburg, he was totally qualified, chosen by President Ronald Reagan to be on the Supreme Court to fill the spot. Who the hell died back then? Who was it? Was it John Paul Stevens? Was it Warren Burger? It must have been Warren Burger. Yeah, it was Warrenberger, and they made Rehnquist the chief. No, that was in 86. I don't know what the hell it was. But they wanted to replace some justice who had died with this guy. And they found out that in college he smoked pot a couple of times. And it was the biggest controversy. And he had to withdraw the nomination. He withdrew. That's when things really got dark and weird. Thank God that Clarence Thomas did not give in. Did not give in. And oh, by the way, I think about the Clarence Thomas stuff. You go back and listen to that now, what he was accused of doing. They acted like he was some sort of serial rapist, for crying out loud. He allegedly made some crude comments at work. And that's it. Nothing more. And that Anita Hill, little scumbucket. Oh, very bad guy. I do not like him. I do not like her. Him, her, him. Look, I'm repeatedly asked to get involved in matters pertaining to a lot of different things. And one of them is, people and pardons and what's going on at the Justice Department and investigations. And I really will not get involved because what the hell do I know? And they, I've got connections to the administration and people do reach out. And but sometimes I reach out to people. I reach out to people because something intrigues me. And for many years, I have been fascinated with the Jeffrey McDonald case. Are you familiar with this? The doctor, the Navy doctor, no, Army doctor, Army Green Beret, who, was convicted of murdering his family. 1970, February 1970. He went berserk in his house, they say, and killed his wife and 2 children. And they were young little babies. And I believed it like everybody else, right? Because there was a famous book called Fatal Vision by a creepy guy named Joe McGinnis. I didn't realize what a creepy was until much later. And the same goes for his... Well, never mind. I don't want to talk about anybody else but he wrote this book totally convicting Jeffrey McDonald. He was going to write a book that said what a great guy Jeffrey McDonald is, and he's totally innocent. But then he got convicted, and he wrote another book, and he was in breach of contract because they had a contract. And the author, Joe McGinnis, had to pay Jeffrey McDonald. And it was just amazing. That never happens. He won. But the book was already written, and it was already turned into a mini-series, and the mini-series was even bigger than the book. And everybody who sees this is convinced that Jeffrey McDonald is a homicidal lunatic and is in prison, and that's good for everybody. I'm not so sure anymore. And for a lot of different reasons, especially after the lawfare against President Trump, and there's a real good indication that he's innocent. I mean, really strong indication that he might be innocent. Now, he's in his early 80s. He's been in jail. He's been in prison since 1982 or something like that, because it took a very long time to actually get a conviction. And they convicted him. The jury was out for like 3 minutes, and they returned with a guilty verdict. This is before DNA. This is before a lot of different things. And I'll give you the big piece of information why I think he's innocent in a second. But this has been on TV a million times, but it hasn't been happening lately because people have really moved on. But he is still alive and in jail, and his wife, his new wife, Catherine McDonald, has been working on this case and actually reached out to me. And so do me a favor. Here's a little bit of a summary, and there's some fake news in here, but there's some actual good news. Hit it, Carlos, if you don't mind.
Jeffrey McDonald is among the most well-known convicted killers in North Carolina history.
McDonald has been in prison for more than 50 years since a jury decided he was guilty of killing his family in their Fort Bragg home. Now, a new podcast is taking a look back at why this case still stands out. A former Green Beret, an Army Special Forces doctor, a father, a killer. While the details of the murder of his pregnant wife and his 2 young daughters may have become foggy since 1970, Jeffrey MacDonald's name remains a familiar one.
It's such a classic case that a lot of people have heard of because of the publicity around it. It's like you've heard of it, you know what he's accused of, you know why he's in prison, but you don't really know what happened. And so I consider it sort of obscure in the annals of true crime, that people consume now.
True crime author Kate Winkler Dawson usually studies cases that can be 100 years old, but she and former forensic investigator Paul Holes thought the MacDonald case would be a good one to revisit as part of their podcast, Buried Bones.
What's interesting about Jeffrey MacDonald is that he was that anomaly of the person who just seems completely normal, a good family man, and for them to go murder his wife and his 2 little girls, I think people will never understand the family annihilator, where it just feels like it's unpredictable, men and women both, where it comes out of nowhere.
MacDonald's wife Colette and daughters, 5-year-old Kimberly and 2-year-old Kristen, were found bludgeoned and stabbed in their Fort Bragg home, an ice pick and a knife among the weapons. It was Jeffrey MacDonald who made the 911 call. He later claimed his family was attacked by 4 intruders. DNA technology did not exist then, but prosecutors had enough evidence to convince a jury that MacDonald was the killer. That verdict, though, didn't come without controversy, and Kate Winkler Dawson says the debate remains.
The police did a pretty poor job in collecting the evidence. They didn't secure the crime scene. And when you have people tromping through a crime scene and evidence gets thrown out and you have people stealing evidence to sell later, that all contributes to reasonable doubt, which is why there was such an issue with convicting Jeffrey MacDonald.
Jeffrey MacDonald has always maintained his innocence. Although his case has had more time in court than just about any other criminal case in American history, no new evidence, including DNA, has validated his claim. For Dawson, it's not just about the evidence, it's also about the psychology behind it.
But he was in the Army, he was in the military, he was respected, he was a surgeon, and that category of people, we just don't see a lot of murders that come out of that category. So it makes it unusual.
So, it does make it unusual. And I believe anybody can snap. But here's the piece of information that nobody seems to know. And I am involved in clemency efforts at this point. He is dying, terminal. He's got kidney issues. So here's the thing. The cops get to the murder scene. He's alive. He's wounded, more severely wounded than people have been led to believe over the years. And they're like, who did this? What's going on? And the first thing he says is a bunch of people, hippies, a lady, floppy hat. And a cop immediately says to somebody else, we just passed a woman in a floppy hat at the corner of Honeycutt and Neverwell Street. Man, we just passed a woman like that. But everybody was freaked out because of all the blood, and they never actually sent a car over there to find this woman. Now, in a military base at 2:30 in the morning, and that's what time it was, is totally, totally desolate and quiet, right? What'd you say, pal? Oh, my goodness gracious, we do? That's fantastic. We are joined now by the legendary law professor, appellate attorney, one of the smartest men who ever walked the surface of America, Alan Dershowitz. Professor, how are you, sir? And privileged to talk to you.
Thank you. As you may know, I was one of Jeffrey MacDonald's lawyers back in the day. I argued one of his appeals in the Fourth Circuit. And after the court rejected, not on the merits, on procedural grounds, rejected his argument, one of the judges said, Professor Dershowitz, don't you ever dare to bring another case involving Jeffrey MacDonald again, or we will have to discipline you. And I said to the court, I will do what my bar association and my bar membership requires me to do. I will continue to bring cases that I think are meritorious. If you want to sanction me, that's your job, but my job is to bring the cases. And I continued to bring cases for many years, but the courts never, ever, ever were willing to look into the case because there is a very, very good chance Jeffrey MacDonald was factually innocent and that this other group of people, led by a woman named Stokely, was involved and not him.
It's amazing. And it was a rainy night, and the MPs passed a woman of Stokely's description, and they would have stopped had they not been on their way to a potential murder scene. And it was pouring rain. It was so weird that she was just standing there. It's amazing what that judge said to you, because just like you say, there could be new evidence.
And there was new evidence. There was new DNA evidence. And look, this case has never gotten a thorough review by anybody. The prosecutors who brought the case originally were disciplined for other misconduct. This case stands as a scandal. And he served now, how many years? More than 40 in prison?
Yeah, and he's in his early 80s now, and kidney issues and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's looking bleak and an injustice, a total injustice. Give us your reaction, please, sir, to the Supreme Court. It looks like a big victory on border protection for President Trump.
Well, I have a split view on this. On the merits, I wish that we would allow people on the border to assert status as victims of persecution. That would be my personal view. But legally, I think the Supreme Court is right. The president, as the head of the executive branch, has the authority to make those decisions. I wish he would have made a different decision. But legally, I think the Supreme Court is correct.
So interesting. There's so much of the talk in our country and in our media and the establishment is trying to prevent or calling out the president for doing things that he is actually empowered to do.
Yeah.
It's the most powerful office in the world, but they're always saying, oh my gosh, he can't do that.
and there are precedents. The three presidents before him who most expanded the executive were Jefferson, who ran on a campaign of narrowing the president's power, and one of the first things he did was buy Louisiana. Boy, was that a mistake. No, that was such a great decision. He did it without congressional authorization. Same thing was true with Alaska later on in our history. And then, of course, Lincoln expanded the power of the executive very considerably. And then Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he wanted to pack the court. He expanded the power of the executive considerably. And, most of them are presidents we admire for expanding the power of the president.
So I happen to catch Preet Bharara, the former U.S. attorney for the Southern District, talking about those legendary phone calls he received from President Trump, two kind of shoot the breeze phone calls. And then the third phone call, he thought he was going to get fired, so he didn't take the phone call. But there's a line in the Constitution that I think has been forgotten by a lot of people. It's in Article 3, and it says, the president, he shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. There's nothing in this Constitution and nothing anywhere that says the president can't pick up the phone and talk to anybody he wants. I think that was totally appropriate. Maybe unusual, but that's President Trump.
Completely constitutional. Let me tell you what Jefferson did. When Burr got arrested for treason, Jefferson called in people and said, I want you to be witnesses against Burr because I believe he committed treason. And if you become witnesses, I will give you a peremptory pardon to make sure you can't be prosecuted for perjury or anything else. That was Thomas Jefferson, our third president of the United States. Presidents have a lot of authority. President Lincoln pardoned people who shouldn't have gotten pardons because he thought that would help in getting West Virginia and other states to join the North rather than the South. Presidents aren't bound by technicalities. They're bound by the Constitution. They're bound by the law, but they're not bound by precedent of prior presidents. They can do things that they think serve the interests of the United States, as long as they act within the Constitution, within the law. And if you don't like it, vote against them, vote against their party. But judges have been imposing too many extra constitutional constraints on this president. You can disagree with what he's doing, but it's hard to find them unconstitutional under the provisions you cited and other provisions of the Constitution that give the president enormous power, not only during wartime, but during peacetime as well. But there are limits to that power, obviously, as President Truman found when he tried to, seize the steel mills, and other presidents have found over time. There are limits, but there are limits to the limits. And courts don't have a roving permission to simply do justice as they see fit. They're supposed to decide only cases and controversies, and yet courts go way beyond that. Even Justice Ginsburg, who was very liberal when she was on the court, said that courts do not have a roving commission to do justice. They just have to decide the cases before them, and in the cases before them, the people bringing them have to have standing. They have to satisfy the other rules bringing cases, and only then does the Supreme Court decide them.
Finally, before we go, Professor, your take on the progress toward peace with Iran and the situation with Israel. How do you feel overall about what's happening?
I'm not feeling comfortable. I wish that the president had finished the job. He did a great job in the beginning. He weakened Iran. He destroyed their then existing nuclear facilities, and I have to give him tremendous praise for that. I think if he had been able to finish the job, the whole world would be a lot safer. If there were regime change, if the Iranian mullahs were not governing anymore and tyrannizing their own people, killing tens of thousands of them, even recently executing and arresting people, women, just for wearing street clothes. But, I think the regime is weakening, and I'm hoping that whatever deal is made, it's a deal that ultimately ends up weakening the regime and making it possible for the good people of Iran to take over without risking tens of thousands of people being killed. So I have an open mind. I hope the ultimate deal is stronger than the memorandum of understanding, but I understand that a memorandum is just that. The deal is the deal. And I think you can't compare the memorandum of understanding with the Barack Obama deal. You have to compare the final deals. And I'm hoping that the Trump final deal, because he's usually a very, very good negotiator, will be much stronger than Barack Obama's deal.
Alan Dershowitz, the legend. We're so grateful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. To be continued, 800-848-9222. I shall return in a moment.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You hear about this guy, the cornerback for the Detroit Lions? Oh boy, he's in a lot of trouble, accused of kidnapping, pistol whipping people, 23 years old, went to University of Alabama. I see a picture of him in the back of a car wearing all kinds of jewelry, including diamonds on his teeth. I've seen a lot of things. I've never seen anybody put diamonds on the teeth, all the teeth, top and bottom. What a look. Let's see here. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's Barbara's turn. Sorry about the lack of time. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Greg. I just wanted to say a quick word about the disgraceful comments Joy Reid made about the 4th of July not being important to blacks in this country. She was so deceitful when she quoted Frederick Douglass, because Frederick Douglass actually became a constitutional advocate. He had criticism of slavery still existing in our country, but he studied the Constitution, and he said, take the Constitution according to its plain reading, and I defy the presentation of a single pro-slavery clause in it. He became a heavy advocate for the Constitution. He said, only by twisting the document's words and ignoring the truth can we assign a pro-slavery character to the Constitution and miss its role in setting the stage for the abolition of slavery.
Wow. And she doesn't know one word of what you just said, does she? You're amazing, Barbara. As usual, Joy Reid. Get help. Many thanks. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?